Hey, I'm Andrew with 10 Minute Therapy, and in today's video, we're going to start the first in a series of videos on parenting. Now, parenting is such an important concept, and it's something that we are often thrust into using only the experience that we have, that we were raised by our own parents. And so parenting is something that requires, in my opinion, our utmost attention so that we can do our very best to love and guide our children well. And so in today's video, we're going to start off this series of parenting by talking about what our mission in parenting really is. So without further ado, let's start the clock and we'll get right to it. So to start off our series on parenting, I think we have to start with a good foundation, something to build this series on. And that is, what is our mission when it comes to parenting? What are we trying to achieve? What is the goal of parenting? See, the truth is, so many of us stepped into the world of being parents, and the only thing we had was maybe a book that we read and the experiences we received from our own parents, who may or may not have gotten it right, who may have done some things well and some things not, which is probably how all parents are. None of us are perfect. And so we enter into this world of parenting and we don't always have a clear vision and a clear goal of where we're going and what we're trying to achieve. And the problem with moving somewhere without a mission to drive us is that we never know if we wander off course. We never know if we're doing what's best or if we could be doing better. Think of it like this. A company has a mission statement, and that mission statement is meant to cohesively draw all of its departments together to say that regardless of our roles in the company, we are all united in this one mission and purpose. And then whenever the company needs to make decisions, regardless of the department head making that decision or the employees involved, we're able to come back to this and say, is this decision going to fulfill the mission that we're on? And so that mission becomes a sort of guiding light to keep us on the straight and narrow. Another great example would be if you went out for a jog one day, but you hadn't really decided, am I going to run a mile? Am I going to run for 30 minutes? Am I going to do a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, a marathon? If there's no goal, no mission at hand, then inevitably what'll happen is the moment you start to feel tired, you're going to be tempted to stop because there was never an end goal in sight anyways. And that might be fine and well on a jog because you're getting exercise and it's good for your heart and your body anyways. But in parenting, we don't have the option to just quit when we're tired. But imagine you're on that same run, and this time you know I'm running a 5K today, 3.1 miles, and you get to mile 2 and your legs are burning and your chest hurts. But you tell yourself, okay, I've got 1.1 miles left to that goal. I can make it. I can do another quarter mile and we'll reassess. And you push a little farther. And you get to mile 2.5 and you think, okay, half a mile to go. We're almost there. Let's go a little farther. We can do another 100 yards, another 100 yards. Having that goal in mind helps you stay focused on what matters. And the same is true for parenting. If we don't have a mission statement for our parenting, if we don't have a vision and a goal for what we're trying to achieve, then the temptation is that when we get tired, we might quit. And equally as important, how do we know if we're doing it right or if we're off track, if we could be doing better? I believe that parenting is so important that it requires our utmost time and attention and intentionality. And so I want to offer today maybe just a few thoughts on what your mission as a parent might be. So then the question comes down to, what is your mission, your vision, your goal as a parent? Now, chances are we're not going to provide one mission, one vision, one goal. There's probably several components, right? It's probably a little more complex than my words might sound like. I'm oversimplifying it. But regardless, we need a missional statement. And I want to suggest here today a couple of ideas that you might incorporate into your parenting mission. Number one, I would say that most parents would tell me, I want my children to be happy and healthy. pretty standard phraseology there. We want our kids to be happy and healthy. But let me extend that a bit. What if your children's health wasn't just physical health? We would agree any decent parent is going to make sure their kids are healthy. They're going to take them for their yearly checkups, feed them good food, make sure they're growing, make sure they're going to school and doing the things that would just make them generally healthy. But what about their mental health and their emotional health? What if your goal for your children wasn't just physical health and happiness, but what if they were mentally healthy? And what would that even look like? Maybe it means helping your children develop an understanding of their own mental health, what they think about and how that affects them day to day. Their ability to think critically, to use logic and reason, to step into someone else's perspective, to be able to agree to disagree, to recognize that facts and opinions aren't the same things. All the types of things we talk about on 10-minute therapy. What if our children developed, and part of our parenting goal was for them to have good mental health, so that when we send them out into the world, we know they can problem solve, they can think rationally and critically, they can navigate the world without just using the whim of their emotions. And what about their emotional health? How important is it to you that your children have good emotional health? That is, the ability to recognize their emotions, know the names of what they're feeling, and the awareness to assign the name to that feeling in real time, to know right now I'm feeling shame, I'm feeling frustration, I'm feeling despair. And then because they have that ability, they're able to then regulate and they know what to do with that emotion. What if your parenting mission, or part of it, was to have children who are not just happy and healthy physically, but mentally healthy and emotionally healthy? How much more will your child thrive if you're able to accomplish that? Now, another parenting goal that you might consider as part of your parenting mission, vision, would be to consider your child's ability to be independent. Now, many parents tell me through the counseling process that they desire for their children to have a sense of independence. But what does that really look like? What is independence? Does that mean that they cut themselves off from the family? Does independence mean that they can do all things and never need a relationship with you? Or is independence something that we breed through a healthy attachment and relationship with our children? Is independence something that we have to teach our children, which also means that there's times maybe that I need to back off as a parent, let my children try things on their own, and God forbid, do I say it, that they fail? Is it okay to let our kids fail and learn from their mistakes? And we come alongside them and say, son, daughter, what happened here? What do we learn from this experience? What if the goal of raising independent children is to help them and teach them how to make mistakes, learn from their mistakes, overcome those setbacks, and move forward, to know how to utilize the resources around them? Independence is a healthy thing when used properly. But I also think it's something that as parents, we can't just expect our children to achieve that on their own. Our role as parents might be to teach them how to be independent by learning what they're capable of and not capable of, where they need help and where they can do on their own, where they can fail and where they can learn. So maybe independence is a part of your parenting mission. Now, I'm going to throw one final suggestion at you today in terms of something that you might consider in your parenting mission and vision. And it's the word discipline. Now, we'll do an entire video on discipline down the road, but for today's purposes, I just want to challenge you to think this way, that oftentimes when we use the word discipline, in fact, when I said it a minute ago, you might have conjured up thoughts in your mind of punishing your child, of taking away privileges, of issuing various punishments so that they will never repeat a certain deplorable action again. But discipline doesn't necessarily mean that at all. In fact, we've discussed in a previous video here on 10-Minute Therapy that discipline actually refers to teaching a pupil. If we look at the root word and we look at the second half of that word, then what we see is that it refers to teaching a pupil. That's what discipline is. It means to teach. So maybe part of your parenting mission and vision is teaching your child, not just letting the world teach them, not letting the school teach them, although those things will certainly happen along the way, but not relying solely on those things, but recognizing that your job as a parent is to teach your child. That means teaching them how to fail and how to grow. It means teaching them about themselves. It means teaching them to think critically and rationally. It means teaching them about mental and emotional health and how to manage their emotions, which also means that you have to step into that space with your child. It means teaching them how to sit in hard spots and tolerate things that are uncomfortable, tolerate uncertainties, tolerate setbacks and frustrations in life, tolerate the fact that sometimes things don't work out the way we want. But it doesn't mean we give up. Maybe discipline is a big part of what we're called to do as parents, to teach our children about the various facets of what it means to be a human being in this planet and how to function healthily in a society of other human beings. So I want you to sit with that today, this idea of discipline as teaching, not punishment. And maybe that's part of your parenting vision. So I want to end today's video with a word of encouragement for you. And it's a quote from the great Dr. Karyn Purvis. She said, "We can't lead children on a journey that we haven't taken ourselves." Now, let me say that one more time. We can't lead children on a journey that we haven't taken ourselves. What she means by that is, if one of my parenting goals might be to teach my children to be healthy mentally and emotionally, but I haven't ever taken the journey myself of discovering what it means to be healthy mentally and emotionally, then how could I possibly lead them there? In fact, what's more likely to happen is that they will inherit from me the same things I inherited from my parents. Another example would be that if one of my parenting goals is to teach my children how to be independent and function well in this world, and yet I myself struggle with codependence, how could I possibly teach them that? In fact, they're more likely to inherit that trait of codependence from me, from learning and seeing from my example. And so my role becomes that I need to take care of me as a parent in order to lead my children well on the journey towards the mission and the goals that I establish for them. So as you sit with this information today, I want you to reflect on this. What are your parenting goals? What is your vision, your mission as a parent? And once you've started to define the finer points of that, what that looks like, the deeper question is then, have you achieved those things in your own heart, in your own life, in your own personal growth? Because if you haven't, then the starting point isn't to try to give your children something you don't have. That's a lesson in futility. Instead, it's to lead yourself into that journey, to seek help, talk to a counselor, seek wise counsel. Find someone in your life who would mentor and pour into you to help you develop those healthy traits so that you can lead your children in a journey that you've now taken and you know the way. Join us next week. We're going to dive back into the topic of parenting by looking at some common parenting mistakes. But until then, I'm Andrew with 10 Minute Therapy. God bless.